My name is Gary Eiceman, and I'm president of GP Ionics, LLC in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And also, I'm faculty in the chemistry department at NMSU now for 40 years. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Yeah, let me go back to here. I'm representing these co-workers, Peter Fowler, who's CEO, Erkeen Nazaroff, who's CTO, and Rana Miller, a board member. We are currently anticipating receipt of the contract for a phase 1 NSF SBIR. We've been recommended for funding and are just waiting to close the paperwork on that. Our innovation concerns chemical measurements of volatile organic compounds in ambient atmospheres. This work is directed towards heating, ventilation, air conditioning providers. We're seeking to supply technology that enables their technology or their hardware to succeed in certain areas of air quality. Our innovation is based on taking concepts of measuring substances. Currently, such concepts occupy large amounts of a laboratory and require large amounts of power and are fairly costly, thinking hundreds to $200,000 of dollars. Our technology innovation brings that technology down to handheld, palm-sized technology that may run in the hundreds or thousands of dollars at the most. It's based upon three steps of selecting ions in the gas phase, from ions produced from the offending volatile organic compounds, fragmenting them, and then characterizing those ions again in the same technology, which is quite small and in handheld size. We call this Ion MPro for multi-step sequential processing of gas phase ions, and measurements are made in about 8 milliseconds. So this is practically real-time measurements. We see this as being a breakthrough and not incremental in nature. The background for this is that volatile organic compounds exist widely dispersed throughout airborne environments and buildings. And as buildings go more towards energy efficiency, where there's recirculation of air, those VOCs will increase and in fact are known to increase. The sick building syndrome is an extreme version. It has a new name now, but it's generally impacts on human health from these volatile organic compounds that arise from a number of sources, synthetic and natural. Currently, the numbers are somewhere in the order of, it's a top 20% of a public health concern in the States, and it may impact as many as 25% of US buildings. The cost in terms of lost productivity from illness and so forth has been attributed about $60 billion, and we're providing the technology to help improve that situation significantly. And how are we going to improve it? You see here in the slide some of the substances that are part of the industry standard. And here's an important point. To date, in the US, there are no government standards on indoor air quality. It's an industry standard, and yet it is not able to be met. There's missing technology that indeed prevents the industry from complying with their own regulations. We offer that technology. And how do we offer it? In the bottom left of the screen here, you can see technology that flies in the International Space Station. This is technology that came out of our laboratory back in the early 2000s and was commercialized as a result of activities of our lab. This technology is very impressive, and yet it can't bring the confidence and reliability necessary for the HVAC industry. The work that we've done is seen here in the bottom right, showing the size of the core analytical engine of our innovation. It is something on the order of 2.5 inches long and maybe an inch wide, and it brings extraordinary analytical capabilities to monitoring air for volatile organic compounds. The technology is shown in a little bit more detail here. The bottom figure shows the plates where ions are characterized in the gas phase. 2 plates are put together as a sandwich, and the ions are passed through as gaseous ions in an air atmosphere with a flow of air. And we select ions in a first stage, we fragment them into chemically class-specific substances in a second stage, and we analyze the fragments in a third stage. They're detected in this last stage, and the consequence of that, here I have a graphic of exactly what's going on. So a substance is brought into our technology, it's ionized, it's made into a gas phase ion, the ion is selected, and in a first stage, fragmented in a second, fragments are analyzed in a third. The consequence of this is that while conventional technologies and chemical measurements in this genre of instrumentation are shown on the left, you can see spectral responses to chemicals. These are ion spectra. They're not optical spectra or mass spectra. They're ion mobility spectra. And you can see how these 4 chemicals are more or less very close to one another. In fact, you would have a lot of difficulty with confidence speaking to the identity of the substances. With our technology, we take that ion and we fragment it into pieces that are now spread out across the ion spectrum, giving us much higher analytical confidence for regulation of these substances in the indoor air. I think I have a graphics later on exactly showing that. What's the market? The market is currently 12 billion in the US for HVAC systems, and it's expected to grow 10%. International market's about 100 billion. The excuse me, the interest internationally for air quality, interestingly, is perhaps more than in the States, since some of the environmental regulations are worse in overseas. And so the desire to try to make your building compartmentalized with respect to air quality is greater there. 2 billion people in the world increase in the next 30 years, and this is going to cause increased demand on air quality from urbanization. So how's this working? Here's the result. It's a plot, and it shows the specificity of the ions formed from various chemicals. What I'd like you to see is that the carbon number on the bottom scale, these are increasing carbon numbers in volatile organic compounds, butane, pentane, hexane, heptane, octane, and so forth. And as we go across this carbon number, the fragment ions coming from different families are very easily seen in our technology. Our measurements, a criterion, which is called a compensation voltage, it's the way we reduce our spectra, shows very clear differences between these chemical families. Indeed, as you look at the capability of classifying the ion spectra from our analyzer using neural network artificial intelligence, we're seeing astonishing results, really for me as a measurement scientist, astonishing, somewhere in the order of 98, 99% accurate identification or classification by chemical family, and identification is also quite there. So we're quite near there. So we have taken technology which is innovated on existing robust principles of chemistry and physics, innovated beyond that, and made Ion M-Pro, and we expect this as a core analytical engine in HVAC systems and in perhaps other areas where environmental monitoring could be significant. Where are we in our current status? We need to go from concept to breadboard. We've made some breadboards or attempted to make breadboards, and they're okay, but not great. We need to optimize certain features of the technology. We're still a very young company growing out of an academic foundation. All the things that are needed, advances. So we're phase 1. We need all of these to go to phase 2. We have a sense that because of our maturity in the field, which is more than 40 years of working in this area, we probably can tool up and go into sales in a relatively short time. So while you may be thinking we're 5 years out, we think our first sales might be on the order of 1 year out from now. we're awaiting the last documents for phase one. Meanwhile, we are engaging with customers. We have 2 customers at the moment, and we're looking for more, and we're looking to get grounded and get moving on these bullet points here. You can reach me at Eiceman at NMSU or Peter EF at nmsu.edu if you wish to speak to us further. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Avinash, Frank?
Yeah. So I had a quick question for Gary. In terms of the competition or the other technologies out there, do you think there are other companies that are being developed or coming up that are using the same approach as breaking into multiple components and trying to figure them out to enhance the?
Yes, we're well aware of more than a few technology approaches to monitoring VOCs in ambient atmospheres. We are fairly confident that they will either have difficulty meeting our price point and being competitive on the financial side, or being competitive on the analytical measurement side. Moreover, our technology is robust. I didn't say this because of limited time, but some of the foundational core concepts that we've built upon are found already in the battlefield with US soldiers and in space station with NASA and in airports, when you go through airports being wiped down for explosives. Those concepts are some of the foundational ideas in what we've done. We've simply innovated beyond that and pushed into areas that simply haven't existed heretofore. So yeah, we know about the other companies. We think we'll be very competitive, both in performance. Give you an example. You know what? I won't. I'll hold that for another time.
Okay.
Thanks for that question. Yeah.
But in terms of IP, you think who holds the IP, and is it protectable or defensible?
Okay. On what I've told you today, the IP is not protectable. It is in the literature. It's come out of academic research, and so the core technology and scientific discoveries, as we have presented them here today, are open. It's not protected. We're moving on provisional patents, which would be application patents or patents of implementation to sort of protect us from being blocked in the future. But yeah, no, we have ideas further beyond this that we believe will not be impacted badly by what's already disclosed.
So one final question. Yes, the technology can be used by other people, but you do believe you have an advantage, especially from cost and things like that. So how is that coming into play in terms of, what's the key differentiator here? If as the IP is available, what is it that people cannot do that you've been doing well? Is it the cost?
It's the implementation. It's the implementation and functionality. This area of work may seem like you can read about it in a manuscript and do it. I can tell you it takes decades of experience to implement this well. And there are very few teams in the world that can do this. There are some in Europe, and we know those teams, and we've actually collaborated with them in the past in different ways. Nonetheless, in terms of going into the market and delivering a technology, we're able to do that, and we don't think, at least in the near term, our competitors will. And by then, we're hoping as a small company to have innovated and capture more scientific discovery. Give you an example. The computational capabilities to do the spectral interpretation have not been disclosed or published. So how you go from capturing a spectrum to interpreting it and assigning it, that's not open source yet. And so those are the types of things which we would capture. And then finally, I think our key is going to be in application patents, simply to block others, to stop others from blocking us. And then we will beat on price and availability and capability.
Thank you.
Great.